Sorry, we just have to wait till it's 6:30. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and for those who have passed away in our community, including Jack McLean. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
King. Mr. King?
Here.
I would like to make a motion to take from the table file of council number 54 of 2023.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table file of council number 54, 2023. This is the zoning ordinance for the city. It's being taken from the table and placed in seventh order this evening. On the question. On the question, I will indicate that several council members have recommended some amendments to the zoning ordinance that will be considered in seventh order this evening. Should those amendments be approved, any of them, someone will have to make a motion to table the zoning ordinance again, so that to allow for at least 10 days to advertise those amendments and to allow the public to be able to comment on those various amendments. Anyone else on the question? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so moved. Dispense with the reading of the minutes.
Third order, 3A, Controls Report for the month ending March 31st, 2023. 3B, Lackawanna County Planning Commission Subdivision and Land Development Evaluation Reports received April 18th, 2023. 3C, Minutes of the Scranton Firefighters Pension Commission meeting held March 15th, 2023. 3D, Minutes of the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held on March 15th, 2023. 3E, Agenda for the Non-Uniform Municipal Pension Board meeting held on April 19th, 2023. 3F, Minutes of the Scranton Police Pension Commission meeting held March 15th, 2023. 3G, Minutes of the Composite Pension Board meeting held March 15th, 2023. 3H, Correspondence received April 18th, 2023 from OECD regarding Code Enforcement Report for City Council. 3I, Correspondence dated April 24th, 2023 from Eileen Cipriani, Directory of Community Development regarding Child Care Educational Catch-up Grants, Interdepartmental Budget Transfer. 3J, Correspondence received from the Mayor's Office dated April 21st, 2023 regarding City of Scranton Sprucing Up Scranton Initiative.
Are there any comments on any of the third order items? If not, received and filed. Do any council members have any announcements this evening?
I have two quick ones. So this Thursday, April 27th, from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m., the Victor L. Fury Society will have their monthly luncheon. It's on North Main Avenue over on West Side, and the menu consists of minestra or pasta and meatballs, or half and half. Price is $12 for members, $14 for non-members. And also St. Joseph Center Baby and Children's Pantry Wish List. It's the Naog Park collection. They're looking for diaper sizes 4, 5, and 6, pull-ups, 3T, 4T, 5T, baby bath towels and washcloths, new baby bottles, baby wash, baby lotion, etc. They also need some formula, fruits and vegetables. No clothing at this time. I think they have enough, so they want you to focus on this. And it's May 6th and 7th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. You can drop off at the community room, which is the old concession stand if you're not aware, and you enter Naog from Olive Street. And it's sponsored by the Scranton Municipal Recreation Authority. And that is all I have.
Anyone else have any announcements? I think it's important to announce the Sprucing Up Scranton initiative that the city of Scranton has just recently announced. There's going to be cleanups for the month of May, starting May 5th, continuing all Fridays in May. The dates and times and locations are as follows. May 5th, they're going to do Connors Park in South Scranton from 9 till 1 p.m. On May 12th in North Scranton, they're going to do Weston Park from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. On May 19th in West Scranton, they're going to do Novembrino Park from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. And on May 26th in East Scranton, Naog Park Community Room from 9 a.m. till 1 p.m. That's all I have at this time.
Fourth order, citizen participation.
Joan Hodawanitz.
Joan Hodawanitz, Scranton. Do we have a date for a public caucus on the 2021 audit?
I don't at this time.
And has the mayor made a decision on implementing the 10% penalty clause?
If she has, she hasn't informed me yet.
She's been busy. She had to go to Ireland. Why hasn't the legislation come up yet for the new auditor?
I think we asked that question last week. Did we get an answer on that?
The BA's office advised we should have it by the end of the month.
This month or next month?
This month, John.
Okie dokie. And the DPW contract, 7+ months, is still not on the website. Any status on that? Or the lawyers still dotting the i's and crossing t's?
Did we get any updates on that yet, Frank?
As of yesterday, the deputy solicitor was going to make a phone call to the Labor Council.
Oh, good.
I haven't heard back as of today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Speaking of the Labor Council, I see in the controller's report that last month we paid Ufberg, our Labor Council, $84,355.36. Now, he's been working on labor contracts for the police and fire since November of 2021. You might want to ask what the running tally is, because the meter is still running. It's going to be a bit of a bill. And let's see what else. Oh, yes, I see that Mr. West is leaving us, and they're looking for a new business administrator. I would suggest that we have somebody right in-house that was well qualified, and that's our finance manager, Matthew Domans. Matt spent a couple years working for PEL as a project manager and finance analyst. He knows all about municipal operations and budgets and special fund budgets and budgetary performance. Especially, he's been upstairs for, more than a year. He has his law degree. He's well-informed. Every time I attend a pension board meeting, there he is asking pertinent questions and taking copious notes. I think he'd be a perfect fit. Failing him, maybe you can get Dave Balzoni to do another act here. Have we ever gotten an explanation of what happened with the Keygate incident? How a man got hold of the keys to City Hall?
No, I believe he was in two other buildings before you arrived
Yeah, he
here.
was in the Forum, he was in the Scranton Public Library.
In the Cultural Center, I believe, as well.
Okay.
And then I think that an office may have been left open,
Well-
and I'm not sure if that's where it occurred or not.
Okay. I mean, the public can't get in, except I should talk to him, figure out how he made it in, because I can't get in. Speaking of getting in, there's a sign on the back door here where the public enters. No food or drink in council chambers and 3 exclamation points, but yet you all have bottles of water. Which brings me to the all-gender bathroom. Now, last week, remember, we were here for what, 5 hours? And at one point in time, I had to go use the all-gender bathroom. And I'm telling you, I will never go into that all-gender bathroom again. Because guess what? The seat was up, and somebody, I don't think it was a woman, had piddled all over the porcelain and the floor. Now, if the administration wants an all-gender bathroom, they need to drop the other shoe and find a way to keep it clean and presentable for public use. Yeah, I don't know. It's one thing to be politically correct. It's another thing to be clean and hygienic. And I don't know, ladies, I'm going to hold it until I go home.
Mrs. Hodowanis, please address council. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'm telling you, I'm going to hold it till I go home, because I'm not going in there again until you tell me it's clean and presentable. It was before it became all gender. So all you guys, your mothers didn't teach you very well. That's all I have for tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Hodowanis. Faye Farinas?
Faye Farinas, Scranton. Last week when I was in the bathroom, a guy walked in. Suppose a woman was sitting on the toilet. That should be eliminated. Enough. Mr. King, did you find out what I asked you last week about at 1420 Millard Avenue, the state police and the Scranton police raided a building owned by the city of Scranton, rented out to a bikers gang for drugs, prostitution,
Frank, were we able to get information on that?
Pardon me?
I'm asking Mr. Voldenberg if we were able to get information on that.
I reached out and we're waiting on the report. I believe it's a restrictive report involving the state police, so I'm awaiting the report.
Well, many people in City Hall certainly know about it, so you're either part of the cover-up, or you should certainly, Mr. King, you could have asked the mayor and found out the answer to that in 3 seconds. Just like you could have asked her, is she going to give the penalty for the audit? It's going to take you 3 months to ask her a yes or no question. Okay, now as far as the zoning vote, isn't it very convenient that you want to have this possibly after the election? Let me tell you, Jessica Rothchild, Smurl, should never be elected to city council again. Joseph Matievich, I believe, is running for council, and 2 Republicans. Vote for them. Do not vote for Jessica or Smurl. They are not for the people. They are for Geisinger. So if you're keeping this vote to keep it after the election, it speaks volumes. So we'll find out, won't we? You haven't taken care of these people at all. Now, Mr. Schuster, did you find out about the overtime for DPW for 3 months, $191,000?
I did not. The information that we got was what the administration had sent down to us, so...
Hasn't been sent down to you because they don't want you to know they have no reasons.
No, we got
How
an
hard is
email
that?
today, actually.
Pardon me?
We received an email today outlining what they, by month, didn't we, Frank? It listed by month what they utilized overtime for.
Well,
We did. We received it today, and I could provide it to Ms. Farinas.
okay, thank you.
Thank
Now,
you, Frank.
let me ask you this. Have you paid attention to your water bill at all, Council? Seeing as Council voted for the sewer authority to be sold to the water company. Do you pay attention to your water bills at all? Do you?
Yeah.
That was a question. Anybody want to answer that?
Yes, we do. We
And
pay
what do you
attention.
think about it?
I don't particularly care for it.
Well, you voted for it. You voted for the sale. Have you considered contacting the PUC?
I voted for the sale?
This council. Council is responsible.
Okay.
Council. You're part of council.
I know that.
And you're still, so I'm asking you, since it bothers you, Mr. King, Have you or any other council members written a letter to PUC complaining about the rates? The rates were supposed to be for everybody in Pennsylvania, most of Pennsylvania. But yet, the PUC rule on it, they said only Scranton and Dunmore have to pay the rates. Nobody else, just Scranton and Dunmore. A friend of mine, a woman, she has a husband and a small child. Her bill was $280. $280 because of the high rates. But yet, you won't write a letter to the PUC complaining to take care of the people. Will you do that? Will you all write a letter to the PUC complaining to take care of the residents and ask them why it's only Scranton and Dunmore? Yes, no?
I would, yeah.
I'm happy to
I have
join.
no
in on
problem doing that.
them.
Okay, well, next week I'll ask you if you did it. Okay, now another thing, you're going to have Rubicon come in here possibly next week. They're already here. The people you need to bring in is Scott Petterface, the director, and Chris Smith, the supervisor of DPW. They're the ones that are not using Rubicon. Rubicon showed them what to do. They just don't want to. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Mr. Petterface and Mr. Smith should have every route loaded in every truck before they leave that building. Every route should be in every truck. Show them where they're going to be all day long. That's the purpose of Rubicon, to make sure they work all day long, from 6 to 2, half hour for lunch. But they don't want to, because the union guys don't want it. So the director and the supervisor don't want to go against the union. So I'm sure that Mr. Schuster and Mr. McAndrew are going to say to Rubicon next week, how come you're not saving the city money? It's not them. It's the director and the supervisor and the union guys. God knows the people in Scranton want them to work all day, but that's not happening. So I'll be waiting for answers for next week, and please do not vote for Jessica Rothchild or Smurl. No, he is there for a reason. The mayor got him appointed to this council for a reason to do her bidding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Charles Cortez.
Mr. Voldenberg, we've confirmed that caucus next week.
No, we haven't. Not for next week.
All right.
They have yet to give us a date.
Yeah, and when they come in, will Scott and Chris also be invited?
They will be.
All right, thank
The
you.
director and the supervisor.
That's fine. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Charles Cortez, Wheeler Avenue. A question asked last week was, how would anyone in this council chambers like to have a 100-foot high parking garage in their backyard? All everyone heard was crickets. Their silence spoke volumes indicating their approval by all in attendance. All we heard from Geisinger spokespersons were that they cannot proceed with any studies or planning until they get the zoning approved. That was Geisinger's well-rehearsed and synchronized battle cry. If any of the studies were to be non-conclusive, then Geisinger CMC can, If the zoning is approved and the traffic study indicates that the streets around Geisinger CMC cannot support the traffic, then what? Will Geisinger request the right of eminent domain from the government or its agent to expropriate private property around the hospital for the use and destroy additional properties, which equates to additional tax loss to the city? If any of the other studies were to be non-conclusive, then Geisinger CMC can proceed because they have the approved zoning ordinance in their back pocket to do as they wish now and any time in the future. Geisinger spokesperson put on a tremendous show with the fancy graphs and charts. They danced all around the meaningful questions asked by you council members. Their dog and pony show signified nothing. Their attempt to intimidate us with their horror stories was not successful. All hospitals have their share of horror stories. After all, hospitals are for the sick and injured, not a hotel for the healthy and the well. Geisinger spokesperson last week were non-sympathetic to the psychological stress this proposed garage will have on the residents of the Neog area community. Let us not be intimidated by Geisinger. They try to overwhelm us with all sorts of statistics which can be manipulated to convey a distorted or a biased message. They will and have used their citywide influence and threats to expand elsewhere as a means to proceed with the ill-conceived parking expansion. Geisinger spokespersons and employees who spoke to council and championed their cause never mentioned that we, the Neog area community, never opposed the expansion, but we are against a 100-foot high parking garage. I firmly believe that omission was intentional to influence council's decision on the zoning ordinance. I have stated emphatically that we are not against the hospital's expansion, but are against a 100-foot-high parking structure in our residential neighborhood. As I have said many times to council, parking garages can be built with future expansion in their design without destroying the existing structure. This is called engineering. Let Geisinger ask for a variance for expansion if warranted. All we are asking for is a compromise to reduce the height of the garage from 100 feet to 45 feet. It is only a 55-foot reduction. It is not like we're asking the sun to rise in the west and set in the east, or for the rivers to run upstream. Council members, now is the time in front of your voting members of your community to show them that where your priorities are. Are they with the tax-paying residents and the citizens of Scranton? Do not abandon us for Geisinger to build a 100-foot-high wall for a preconceived concept of future influx of patients without the consideration of a compromise. Each vote you cast for Geisinger to proceed with this 100-foot-high monstrous garage is the sound of the tolling of the funeral bells for the death of the historical Neog area community. Be the great progressive Scranton council members that has the wisdom of Solomon to reach a compromise that will be agreeable to all concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortez. Norma Jeffries.
Norma Jeffries, a Scranton resident. And, you know, sometimes I come up here, I'm a little bit hesitant to speak about what I'm going to speak about, but I'm going to speak. Number one, I wanted to thank Mr. Smurl and his team that cleared a lot that I had issues with, and I had asked his team to clear the lot at Colfax and Gibson Street. When I left for church on Sunday morning, they were there. I leave for church at 9 o'clock. And they were there cleaning. When I came back from church, which was about 11:45, and there was even more people there that were there in the morning, and they were doing quite a job. So I do thank that team, and it makes me know that things can change if I do ask. The second thing I wanted to talk about was the Shade Tree Commission. And as you all know, I'm a member of that commission as well. And we're going to be honoring the Scranton frontline responders who were so critical during the COVID-19, who took care of the community during that stressful time. And we're going to have a celebration to honor them on Friday, April the 28th, 11 o'clock at the Novarino Splash Pad. And we're just looking to thank them for their services. We will be presenting a plaque that has been engraved with their name, and it will be, not their name, but some words that we put together. And that will be installed there as well as some trees are going to be planted there in their honor. So we're hoping that people can come and honor them. There will be representatives from Geisinger there as well as regional, because those are the Scranton hospitals, and they will be there as well as other elected officials. We're hoping that we invited to that presentation. So that's my second thing that I wanted to talk about. And then the third thing that I wanted to talk about was last week, and I think most of you knew that I was upset about the way that you voted last week on Resolution 7C-221-2023, and that it was ratified and approved with your outstanding questions. And I didn't think that that was very fair to me and to the general public, who heard Mr. McAndrew identify excellent questions. How will the homes be identified as to which homes will be tested for lead? Is it a voluntary program? What happens with the results from that study? And my questions were, who will pay for the removal of the lead in these homes? And will children be tested if lead is identified in the homes, as well as pets? Also, I did go and pull the resolution on that particular 75 pages, so I couldn't print it all. But I did print out those things that were I thought were critical to your decisions to make on this lead. And I'm going to read what one of the pages says. It's on page 21 of the resolution. That lead is naturally occurring metal that can cause negative health effects. People are exposed to lead by breathing in lead dust, eating lead chips, and ingesting contaminated food or water. Children younger than 6 years are more likely to be exposed to lead dust due to their hand-to-mouth behavior. Because of their developing nervous systems, children younger than 6 years old are particularly vulnerable to the effects of this lead exposure, since lead is easily absorbed in the nervous system. Even low levels of lead in the blood can cause development delays, difficulty learning, behavioral issues, and neurological damage. The effects of lead poisoning can be permanent and disabling. The city of Scranton is interested in undertaking lead-based inspections, risk management in targeted single-family occupied dwelling units. That really blew my mind when it said single-family, built before 1978, and in which a child under the age of 6 years of age, 6 years of age, as well as pregnant ladies. I didn't realize that pregnant ladies are also affected by this lead. The city also plans to undertake a targeted outreach campaign to educate residents on the risk of the exposure to lead, and this RFP does not cover the remediation services. So those things of what's going to happen with the results, according to this, is not covered. Let me just finish my last sentence. And my question tonight is, were the questions addressed? Can the answers be read so that I, as well as the general public, can know and be educated on how lead can affect our children? Anything when it comes to children, I'm going to jump right on the bandwagon. And so when you voted last week, I just was taken back that you would handle it so loosely when there's so many critical effects with lead poisoning and the unanswered questions. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Jeffries.
Norma, I have the answers to your questions. I'll report out in fifth order.
Oh, you're going to report on them?
In fifth order,
Okay.
I'll read you the answers to the questions I posed, so.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it, because I just think the public needs to know. Thank you.
I agree.
Les Spindler.
Good evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident. I know you guys have a tough decision to make tonight. I don't envy you. But I could sympathize with both parties in this instance. I think there should be compromises made. I know the people who live in this area have a good argument. But I know firsthand that CMC has a good argument, too, for expansion. Approximately a year and a half ago, my mother-in-law, who was fighting blood cancer, was taken to CMC ER with COVID. It was about 8 o'clock at night. She was out in the hallway in a bed, as was said last week, which happens to a lot of people, till like almost 8 in the morning the next. She was like 12 hours in the hallway, and she has since passed. But that's just one example. And approximately about a month ago, my wife had a little accident in our house. She tripped over our dog's bone and fell. She had a glass in her hand, broke the glass. Cut her thumb and cut a tendon in her thumb. So we went up there. I rushed her up. If you saw the blood on the floor, you'd think there was a murder in the house. But they took her in quick, but they just wrapped it up, sent us back to the waiting room. We had to wait about 5 hours till she could get a room. And finally, long story short, the doctor came in, stitched it up. They took x-rays. They said your tendon might be cut. So anyway, 2 weeks later, she needed surgery to repair the thumb. She's healing now, but we were there for 10 o'clock at night till 5 in the morning. So they're understaffed, they don't have enough beds. So I could see their argument to that point where they definitely need expansion. So I hope there could be a compromise, but I wouldn't want to be in your guys' shoes. Next thing, subject I talked about here before, all these shootings in our country. Last week was terrible. I'm sure everybody heard on the news that This young African-American gentleman went to a wrong house and he got shot looking for his brother. Same thing last week. A woman turned around in somebody's driveway. They shot her. It's unbelievable. Then a couple days later in North Carolina, this young father was playing with her 6-year-old daughter basketball. Their ball went in the neighbor's yard. He went in the house and shot them. It's out of control. Thank God the girl just got grazed on her cheek. But I just heard on the news tonight the father got released from the hospital today. But these shootings are just out of control. Something's got to be done. I know our president's for gun control, but the Republicans won't pass it. As long as they're tied with the NRA, we're never going to have gun control. That's it I have to say tonight. I talked about this last year. When we first bought our house, we had coal heat. We no longer have coal heat. And I had ash cans. When I did yard work, I'd put all the stuff on yard work in the ash cans and put them out in the yard. Last year, the garbage man took all of my ash cans. They were beat up a little bit, but they had no right to take them. Now, I don't have anything. I did yard work the other day. I had to put all the stuff in garbage bags. So I think DPW owes me a couple containers. I said this last year, and I never heard a word. So maybe I'll just go down and ask for a couple containers. But I don't think that was right that they took those ash cans, and nothing was done about it. Lastly, was there any word from what's going to happen on our corner where I live? Any update on that?
Getting the update on that, Frank?
Not as yet. I could follow up with the DPW director tomorrow.
If you would, appreciate that.
All right, I'll have to go down there and see if I can get some containers. Maybe I'll look into that myself. All right, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Spindler. Kathleen McDowell.
Hi, my name is Kathleen McDowell. I own a property at 1119 Jackson Street. On January 21st this year, I got a letter of condemnation from the city of Scranton saying that my property was vacant and abandoned, which it is not. I, for a week, called code enforcement, sent a letter to Dr. Rothchild, and finally the next week got a call back asking if I could meet them at the property, which I did. I let 2 code enforcement officers go in, take pictures, look at the property, and see that I was only painting, tiling the bathroom. I wasn't doing anything that I shouldn't be doing. I had an electrician scheduled to come in February that is licensed with the city of Scranton. And after that, I called back because nobody called me back again for another week. And finally, I think it was Andrew Sunday called me back, told me they were sticking with the condemnation. When I asked under what grounds, they said, well, you don't have any utilities on. I did have electric heat, but when the city condemned my building, they pulled my electric meter without my consent, which happened to be the week before the coldest day of the year here in Scranton when it was 8 below zero. They did allow me to go in and winterize my property. Thank you. Since then, they made me pay a $250 fee to have NAIC, I think is how it's pronounced, or how it's spelled, come in and do an actual inspection of the property. I allowed them to do that also. They said I had to have the fire chief come. I let the fire chief come. To this day, I have not gotten one return phone call from Tom Oleski after at least 25 phone calls, at least 13 emails. I have hired an attorney who has sent him a written letter, no response. So I'm asking here today, what is the next step, since no one will call me and tell me what I'm supposed to do. I am a widow, I'm 60 years old, I'm doing the work myself, so it is not a process where I'm having somebody that I can afford to spend $10,000 for somebody to come in and paint for me when I'm quite able to do it myself. But now I can't get the electrician in because the building is condemned, and nobody from code enforcement will call me back. And now we are 3 months later.
So I inquired about this on your behalf to Mr. Walker. And Mr. Voldenberg, we received 2 emails. One, the latest one says from Mrs. Cipriani, she will follow up. And that was 2 weeks ago. So, so could you follow up again or inquire again? What does Mrs. McDowell actually need to do? Because you're getting no direction.
None. I have actually called and begged somebody to give me, tell me what to do next.
You
What
shouldn't
is the
have to
next
do that
step?
any longer.
Exactly. I pay my taxes. I would like to know what is the next step. And what constitutes a condemnation in this city? What? Because I'm working on my, oh, and that was the other thing. When I went to the City Hall and I asked code enforcement why they condemned it, the next person told me, well, somebody complained that I was working on the building. Well, then it's not abandoned or vacant, is it? If we're working on it, so you're lying. Let's face the truth here and tell me why. Are you suckering me for money? Because honestly, I paid the one fee, and the next thing they said, well, it's a $10,000 bond that you have to put up to the city to continue working. I'm not paying a $10,000 bond. I'm not doing anything I'm not supposed to be doing. What constitutes a condemnation, and where can I see those records? Where in the city? Tell me. I will go there. I have done a lot of research. I will go there tomorrow and read them.
Well, let's see if we can get them. I'll get them for you. Okay, Mr. Voldenberg?
I'll take care of
that
it, sir.
email. Let's get some answers, because obviously you haven't gotten any, which is...
Exactly, because who's going to pay the
I'm
rent
sorry,
that I haven't
I'm sorry.
gotten for 3 months now?
I agree that you deserve a call back and
One phone
apologize
call
that that
back
has
is all you
not
got to do. Just tell me
happened,
where I
and we'll
go.
make sure that it does, and you know, in all of your research, the fact that you haven't been able to find what constitutes a condemnation, we need to have that on the website. We need to have that
Something.
posted so other people do know what their rights are.
And who will put the meter back on my building? Is that going to be the city's responsibility, since you pulled it off? I don't have
We'll
to pay
find
for
out
that,
about that
right?
as well.
We'll give you them answers. I
Okay,
promise.
one more question.
So, hang on one second. Mr. Voldenberg, do we have Mrs. McDowell's contact number? Do we-
Everybody has my contact number, but I'll give it
We do.
gladly again. What are the qualifications for your code enforcement officer to literally walk down the street and condemn a property? What are his qualifications? I met the young man who wrote the letter, so I just would like to know what his qualifications were for doing that. What do you have to possess to be a code enforcement officer that can condemn a property in this city?
There is a certification process.
There is. He is certified. Okay.
I believe so.
I believe there's a certain, when they're hired, there's a certain grace period that they have initially to be able to prepare and take the certification test.
Okay.
That the city then pays for, and then they're required to pass that test. They might get 2 tries, and if they don't, then
Okay.
they lose employment, or they could, you know, find another position within the city.
Okay. I think
Thank you,
that's all I
Mr.
have.
McDowell.
Thank
We'll
you.
try to get those answers for you.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And if you could leave your number with Allison.
Tyler Day.
Good evening, members of council, President King. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be here last week because of work, but I did watch the presentation from Geisinger and the public comments after on the YouTube channel, and I wanted to voice my opinions in support of my neighbors in the Hill section. I want to voice my opposition to the high-rise parking garage that's looking to be built on Colfax. I certainly understand the public's frustration with the hospital right now, and I'm not too happy with them myself. CMC, though, they are a hospital and they are a business, and right now they are acting in their self-interest. This is why we elect city leaders. We have the expectation that our city leaders, city council, the mayor, will act in the best interest of the residents and will represent the interest of the residents in situations like this. Instead, whether it's tonight, 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, it does look that council is prepared to side with Geisinger. And the one thing that frustrates me is that no matter what resolution you come to, whether it's the 100 feet or 40 feet, it's still going to be a lose-lose for the residents of the Hill. They will still have a giant parking monstrosity built across from their house. The homes that were on Colfax that are no longer there, no matter what happens, they are off the tax rolls. And our elected officials should not put us in a situation where the best outcome is a lose-lose. But local elections have consequences, and this is where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Chuck Wasco. Chuck Wasco.
Good evening, Council. I know I'm not supposed to have this, right? I apologize. Scranton resident my whole life, and I'm here tonight because I wanted to speak about the Geisinger situation, and I wanted to propose something to you gentlemen, that if they want to come here and build and interrupt these lives of these people that live here in the city, why don't we put a pool in? I would like to ask each one of you guys that are on, and women, what's your thoughts on a pool in this city? Mr. Smurl, what would you say?
My thoughts on a pool in this?
Yeah, what I'm concerned with is I work with juveniles and I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, and I think that there's not enough for the juveniles to do in this area.
Absolutely. I'm for a splash pad, enlarging the bathhouse, and a swimmable pool.
Because at one time we used to have one in each section of the Scranton area, so we do not have one. So you're for a pool. Mr. Schuster, how about you?
I'm also for a pool. I've expressed it several times.
And I'm aware of that, and I appreciate that.
I would be for a pool. I would think about a splash pad, and I would like to look at the bathhouse to see what we could do there, whether it needs to be enlarged or not, because it was built in, I think, 2004, so it's pretty new.
Can we all agree that they really tore down that Naog pool pretty quick? Sad, isn't it? Mr. King, how about you?
100% for a pool.
Mr. McAndrew?
Absolutely.
Ms. Rothchild?
I agree as well. I always have, and I've been on record saying that we need a pool.
What can we do to bring that to the city then, besides having Weston Field? Can we ask Geisinger to maybe beautify the park and build a pool for us? I think it's a great idea. I mean, you know, and I get it. Gentlemen, ladies, I know it's a hard decision because business is business, but for the taxes that we pay, we should get something for it. So let's make a pool, let's build a pool in this city and give something for the juveniles to do in this area, because a splash park is not cutting it. Second, I would like to know, the young lady that's trying to fix up her property, here's my question. Mr. Smurl, you are familiar with myself because I have a half of a double, and the other half was condemned for years, and nobody from the city seemed to care what I went through. The same person's house is now out of condemnation, but he's not taking care of it. So my question is, what quantifies or constitutes a condemned house, which I know that we're going to get the answers, and what are we doing with the demolition properties that have been on demolitions list for years? Does the individual that owns the house pay for the demolition, or does the city get grants? I'm very curious.
The $10,000 bond was supposed to be for the demolition of the house, if you can get that from the people. But there's a lot of information on the city's website about the Uniform Construction Code. If you look up, just go on Scranton's website and you look up Uniform Construction Code, it will tell you in detail what the rules are and how it's to be done. The problem with the housing and all of that, I'm taking up your time, is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay, the problem with the demolition is the boards we can condemn houses, we can put them on the condemnation list, we can put them on the demolition list.
I went in front of you,
Then
so I understand that.
they take them to central court, and then they seem to get kicked back to the city 2 to 3 times. Prime example, the house in Greenridge. That's coming back again. I put that on the demolition list probably 8 years ago, and it's still coming back to haunt us. So the judges that keep sending these things back and your local enforcement, there's nothing more we can do. You write the citations, they don't pay them. You send it to be a demolition, they appeal it in court. It gets sent back 10 times.
And I understand that, but here's my question. Do we have a program that's in place that we can maybe put in to help rehabilitate some of these houses and help the citizen?
There is money for first-time home buyers. There is money to rehabilitate stuff, but if they're condemned or they're under demolition order, nobody wants to buy it.
Well, I'm trying to say, like, this young lady's trying to fix hers, so I'm just thinking maybe
I understand that. Yeah.
You know, but I mean, as far as that is concerned, like, I would like to see if a house is condemned or demolished, that maybe the city can assist in rehabilitating and in giving so much time to say, okay.
There are grants for purchasing homes in the city, first-time home buyers, and there's other programs. I really don't know what happened with this house. If there was somebody there and it was condemned while somebody was there, I think we have a problem there.
Well, I'm stuck with a situation of having to have a double and the other side's not taken care of, and I feel like...
So you know it goes back and forth.
Yeah, and it's frustrating on my end because I'm trying to pay my taxes, do the right thing, and the other side's dilapidated, my value gets appreciated, and then everyone else's does too.
And send a letter to the judge that keeps sending it back on the city to decide. We decided.
I had one other thing too I wanted to talk about. The splash parks, when we have those, do we have to have somebody there to pay to watch the kids?
I believe they have people there, yeah.
Yeah, but is it necessary?
I believe you need somebody on site at all times, yes, yes.
And I understand that, but I guess what I'm getting at is I would really love to see a pool in this area for the kids, the juveniles, and something for them to do.
Entire council's in support of that. Thank you, Mr. Waskow.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Ron Ellman.
I'm sorry, Council. I'm not used to so many people. It's hard for me to get up here after so many beautiful, intelligent comments tonight. But, of course, we don't know how you guys are going to vote, really. And these people, all of them talking, they're speaking after, they're locking the gate after the horse is out. There should have been, all this conversation could have and should have been going on when house after house was in the paper on Colfax being bought up by this atrocious situation. But I saw something in the paper the other day, last week. It said Geisinger claimed they're losing millions of dollars. Did y'all see it? Well, how can they have millions of dollars in a building fund and millions of dollars to buy houses and pay for all the expense of lawyers and so forth, and lose millions of dollars? To me, this is their Achilles heel. There's something wrong with their financial being. I think it ought to be investigated by the state from top to bottom. I don't think they could explain all this to my satisfaction, because I did try to find out a little bit. You don't get nowhere on the phone. But like I said, I think this is their Achilles heel, and it ought to be investigated by the state immediately. to change the subject, I'm in Mr. Ware's district. If I get a ticket or something, I don't know how I can go before him. And Ms. Hayes is over the department that absolutely caused all my problems, and she never lifted a finger to address anything that I've brought before you people. I said that Olaski waived, I showed you pictures, waived dozens of tax forms on the houses, and it's not up to him to do that. Ms. Hayes come to my house last week asking to vote for her. I let her talk to Roseanne. Then she went next door. Next door's porch is the couch that I got fined for. And still, how can she run for an office when she's not taking care of the least bit, small bit of business concerning my one block? I'm not trying to get her to take up my whole neighborhood. I haven't decided what to do yet but I got it. Mr. Ware fined me. Mr. Sunday lied in court, refuses to come in here and confront me. Anyway, I said outside that the lesser of two evils is still evil, so I don't know which one I'd vote for. But to show you how being fair about it, Roseanne put a sign in the yard and plans to vote for Ms. Hayes. So goes it. And again, try to investigate Geisinger's finances, because there's something going on that's real large here that they're trying to avoid further investigation of. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roman. Dave Rinaldi.
Good evening, Council. It's been a long road to get here. Anyway, I have some comments. One, I wanted to talk about the caucus that you had with Geisinger. I thought that several council people had some very good questions that, of course, were not answered. I have to say that I was a little disappointed. They continually say that they had conversations with the neighborhood, and no one seems to know who they were. I've asked that question numerous times. I certainly was disappointed, and I don't mean to pick on you, Dr. Rothchild, but you've been to the meetings of the Neighborhood Association, and you know that they have expressed to you the fact that there has not been any communication. So there was misrepresentations there. And as a result of that, what I want to do, and this came to me, I hear you don't have anything for your caucus next week. I'd like to request that council caucus with our neighborhood association. We'll pick some representatives, and they'll sit at the table, and they'll proceed to give you their unified thoughts on this and their plans. One of the things I think we can do is, I know myself, I can give you an alternate development plan for that area, which will make everything better. Costs Geisinger more, but they're $1 billion corporation. So I'm asking you to keep the ordinance on the table and schedule us for a caucus before the meeting next week. With that said, I also want to make a comment about the representative from the 114th Legislative District in Pennsylvania. Now, just to show you what kind of inside baseball is being played here. I walked in with her last week. Then I went up to sign in. And there were several names on there. But hers was first. Someone signed her in. That was set up. Now think about this. Probably the greatest gerrymandering that ever happened was put in Waverly with Greenridge. It happened the last time. We have the establishment Democrats, the original ones that moved into Waverly, and the ones in Greenridge. She came here, that representative, and said she represents the people of Scranton. Well, our representative up on the Hill is Kyle Donahue. You didn't see anyone else. You saw performance art. I'm very disappointed in that. I'm not sure, in all seriousness, about her Democratic bona fides after that. And I know she'll be up next year, so maybe there'll be someone to challenge her. Lastly, I want to say very briefly that I think it's crystal clear that this is about the people versus property. Geisinger wants to control the property, and the people that live there are just an impediment to what they want to do. The design process should have started with us all sitting down, all the stakeholders, and where are the best places for what they need. But they didn't do that. They hemmed and hawed, they had a plan, they didn't show us anything. We thought that we had at least a semblance of an agreement, and then January 6th happened. Planner King changed the map. Changed the map, nobody knew it was going to happen. No input, no nothing. I asked them at the Planning Commission, who did you talk to? Who told you to do that? There's no answer. I mean, we've asked Geisinger, we've asked council. Who exactly did you talk to? We just don't get any answers. So I'm hoping since there's going to be some discussion and some amendments, that you will give the residents up there the courtesy of allowing them to come in as a group and caucus next Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. Rinaldi. Lee Morgan.
Good evening, Council. Lee Morgan. The first thing I have here is I called the mayor's office this week and asked if the mayor was going to send up legislation to return the public component of the PEG channel, public access to ECTV. And I was told that by council that, well, maybe next week, depending on how this legislation comes up for the mayor. But, you know, I just think it's very important to return that. But the other thing I have here is we had a little discussion here about condemned properties in the city, and I'd just like to say that somebody needs to look at the Department of Licensing and Inspections, because what they're doing in the city is they're condemning homes, and they're holding to the building code of today, even though the houses were built in 1950. And when somebody gets their home condemned, they need to immediately do an appeal to the Building Appeals Board and just stop the process right there, because you can't hold the building to a code it was never designed to meet. And all these condemned properties are just a conduit to move federal money and grant money into other people's pockets. It's been going on in this city for so long. I've been coming to these council meetings for 37 years now. I've watched all the silly, corrupt politics. I've seen almost everything. And you know, the people here have to realize one thing, because I think they missed something here that's going on. This is spot zoning. The whole zoning map is being rewritten to give cover to Geisinger so they can build this addition to their hospital. And it's illegal to do spot zoning changes in Pennsylvania. Now, I have to say that the residents of this city have done themselves no favor over my whole lifetime because they have never had any backbone to stand up for themselves, ever, in my whole life. Now, when we talk about public pools, Novembrino, the Capous Avenue pool, they were closed because of neglect by the city. Ozzie Quinn wanted to go look at what the deficiencies were long ago. What we have is corruption on a level that's just not feasible to continue. You know, you look at things that have just happened in this city. You watch what the police and the firemen did to people who were getting a double pension, but when I was here when Mr. Doherty was mayor, he wanted all the city employees to take an early retirement. He was going to double their pension. Mr. Javazzi and others from the public service unions came here. I watched them cajole people to take an early retirement. You're not going to get a deal like that again. And then I watched later employees cannibalize their own former members. Okay? I mean, what's gone on in this city my whole lifetime has been nothing but corruption. We've listened to council talk about how that, oh, a prior council did that. No, this is a continuance. It's called possession. Okay? There's a chain of possession in this city from one political group to another, and it just continues. Okay, so when they want to run for public office, what do? Well, they back the public service unions, the fire, the police, the DPW, the nonprofits. They feed them with grant money and just take care of them, and then they throw the people in the city under the bus. You've seen people come to this podium over the decades complaining about the problems in their neighborhood, never solved, okay? And no backbone from the council because it's just one political hack after another. It's all pay to play politics. Now you got Mr. Gallahan talking about it when he shoved Joe Biden down everybody's throat, every businessman in downtown Scranton. And now the hearings that are going on in Congress find that the Chinese money came right through Joe Biden and his son from 2014, our president. This country is just corrupt from the top to the very bottom. And people want to talk about Democrats and Republicans. Look at Scranton's public school system. It's almost a joke. And my last thing here is, Mr. King, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions about the public access channel because we haven't talked about that for a while. And I'm going to hope that the mayor stops playing politics and returns the public access channel, public component to it back. And I know I'm going to be in Wilkes-Barre at the law library. I'm going to give it a couple more weeks, and then I'm going to file one. You may find yourself in a courtroom with your solicitor, and the mayor can bring hers, and ECTV can bring theirs, and we'll play. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Evan Xanthus.
Good evening, Council. My name is Yvonne Xanthus. I live in Lower Greenridge on Dixon Avenue. First, I have to answer Mr. Morgan. My children went through the Scranton School District. They're doing phenomenal. My son is going to graduate from Temple Med School May 5th with top honors. So Scranton School District did pretty good for them and for me and my two brothers. I recommend the Scranton School District to anybody. It is a good school district. Okay, what I came here for is Dixon Avenue. Apparently Dixon Avenue has become the land of opportunity for developers. First, we had a cement plant. And after we all got sick, the cement plant left, and then a senior building went further back. Now, in the parking lot for the old Eureka next to my house, they're building another senior building, which to me it seems a little bit overkill. When they started, we went to the zoning meeting. We were told what's going to do. Of course, it went through, and they're okayed. The second week they were doing construction over there, my house was shaking so much that my great-grandmother's crystal was coming out of the china closet. Called City Hall. City Hall told me they did a mining study. Well, they said there's no mines. I hate to tell them. I have a mine shaft that runs under my property, comes out between my house and Sanderson. It opened up in 2010. Surface mining from Wilkes-Barre came in and had it covered. So there are mines there. Okay,
I told them, I went over, I was real nice, stern. I said, if my house caves in, you just bought yourself a property. So they kind of slowed up. It wasn't that bad. This morning I wake up, there's 3 18-wheelers covering my circular driveway. I couldn't get out. There's my front porch, you couldn't go off the front, you couldn't go out the driveways. I'm saying to the guys, you gotta move. I have to get to a doctor's appointment. Well, we have nowhere to go. I said, well, listen, that's not really my problem. You're in front of my house. The beeping and the noise goes on from before sunrise to at least 9, 10 o'clock, 7 days a week. So these people up near CMC, it's incoming for them. It's terrible. I don't get sleep. I have circles under my eyes. This is ridiculous. We have no quality of life there. We can't sit outside because bang, bang all day long. I mean, this is a little bit ridiculous. I don't understand why this has become such an important zone for these builders. It's not such a great area to keep, there's no neighborhood anymore. The neighbors are moving out. They don't want to be there. No one wants to be there now. I wish someone could just tell me, with the zoning laws, were they changed to benefit developers? Apparently. Because that's what my daughter was told today, that the zoning laws changed. So in other words, homeowners have no right. Does anybody know about the zoning? I don't know.
A lot of the zoning which changed, they added a lot more definitions, I believe, to try to reduce the number of appeals going before the zoning board. So it just kind of more clearly identifies what is allowed and what's permitted, what's not permitted, and what are considered special exceptions, which would have to go before the zoning board.
But if I cut my grass at 7 in the morning, someone will call the police. But it's okay for them to be banging, clanging, beeping. Do you know how nerve-wracking that is? Just think about this. 7 days a week. It's getting to be a little bit too much. I think that whoever's doing the zoning, they're not family-friendly people. They're just for the big companies. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zantis. Is it Chrysler Zantis?
Hello. Kristen, Dixon Avenue. Hear about the same thing. I was out at work. I came home to a construction worker, the head of it, and I said to him, I said, listen, I said, I've been understanding this whole time. I said, but can you please move the trucks from in front of the driveway? He said, well, I don't have anywhere else to park. He said, I got a permit to close down the road if I need to. I never heard of such a permit like that before, but maybe I don't know of it. But then he goes on to tell me, well, I don't see a vehicle in your driveway, so what does it matter? That's none of his business. It's my driveway. We pay the taxes. I don't understand why, that's somebody's business. This city, to tell you the truth, I wish all these people in here a lot of luck, because this city is going down the tubes. I dealt with Daron when I was in school, my whole life in high school. I dealt with another problem in this city, got no help, except from Mr. Voldenberg or Mr. King. They're the only two people that addressed it. My house is shaking constantly. These people here, same thing's gonna happen to them. Now I look over to a building to the right of me, which was originally a parking lot. Somehow a parking lot now becomes a space for a building of a big high-rise, which doesn't really add up because it was designed for parking. That's why it was called a parking lot. Maybe one of you people should come down there and see how we live, or go up there and see how they're gonna live. Because, the city is just being taken over. There is no more neighborhood, there's nothing. All I wanna do is move out of the city, but, I grew up here. I grew up in the same neighborhood since I was born, and let me tell you, it's terrible. I never got any help from city council about a previous place that was across the street from me. There were different people here at that time on council. You know, I had a dog that died, my grandmother died, other family members died, and, you know, right now, I came home at lunch today to have an argument with the people next door because they destroyed my front lawn because they decided it's okay to park your tractor trailers on it and say, oh, well, we'll move it. That was when we had snow. So you know when you go over snow when it's frozen, what it does to the ground? So now my sidewalk's destroyed. He said, well, I'll fix it once spring comes. I go out there, he says to me, he said, well, he said, it'll even out after a while once the rain comes. It's not gonna even out on its own. You know, maybe one of you people should really come down there because now, instead of a 30-some unit building, he's telling me it's gonna be a 40-unit building. And they have no parking spots. He said they have no room. That's why they can't put their trucks in there. There's no room for parking. What are they gonna do? Once they get the building up, what's the building gonna be there for? Nothing? I mean, I came here not that long ago with another problem, and I gotta say, you know, this city, the paper, nobody helped. Nobody did anything. I mean, the only other option of certain things is the news, because this city, I wish you all a lot of luck, you know, but you're not gonna get any help. It's gonna be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Santos. That exhausts the sign-in list. Is there anyone else like to be heard?
Doris Klosky. I think you know where I live. First of all, I do want to commiserate with the people that just spoke because we do know exactly how they feel. Geisinger had let the water company, construction people, use the lot where the school used to be across the street from my house all the time. They were putting the pipes in, and all night long, 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, we had backup alarms going off and trucks running in and out of there. So I do sympathize. I wish I did have the kind of money that I could have bought up the properties around my house like Mr. Smurl did around his and fixed them all up so I could control what was going on there. But I didn't have that kind of money. All right, I want to address something about the emergency room at Geisinger. I do feel that they need a bigger emergency room. So do the rest of the neighbors. We're not against that. We're against the parking garage. But it's beyond me, the height of the parking garage. It is beyond me why people go to the emergency room unless they have Geisinger insurance and it's the only emergency room they can use. And if they're waiting 8 hours, don't take and go down to the Mercy's emergency room where they can get in. And I can't tell you how many people have stopped me at the park where I walk 2-3 times a day with my dogs. And people come up to me and say they recognize me from seeing me here speaking at council. And they say they feel bad for me because we're fighting a losing battle because Geisinger, the city's in Geisinger's pocket, and you can't fight the corporation. But they also say that they've had experience in the emergency room and they've left the emergency room and they've gone to Mercy emergency room and gotten in, or they've gone up to Lehigh Valley emergency room and gotten in. So the only reason I can think that I would stand in the emergency room for 10 hours if I thought my leg was broken and not go to another emergency room would be if I had the kind of insurance that I can only use that emergency room. So that's a question I'd like to answered. Also, the other thing that I'm also wonder about is, like, I know you're going to address these amendments today on 7th order, but I'm always curious is we don't get to see them or quote on them now, I guess, until next week because we don't know what they are. Nobody discussed that they were going to put any other kind of amendments in with us, you know, adding to this thing. So as the neighbors, again, we're left kind of out of the loop. So that's that. Okay, so I'll be done with that, and the only thing I have is a few announcements. That the Pine Brook Arts Festival at Adams School will be April 29th from noon to 4 p.m. May 4th is a primary election debate at the University of Scranton. I believe it's at 6 o'clock. And tomorrow night, they're supposed to be meet the candidates at Jack's Draft House on Prescott Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Doris.
Evening, Council. Tom Coyne, Manuka. First of all, I also concur with the secret amendments after public comment. I understand that in seventh order amendments are going to come up, but without knowing them, without having them on the agenda beforehand for anyone to take a look at it, it really denies the public the ability to make comments on whether or not they actually think these amendments are of value and should be supported. I was a little bit disappointed that it's going to be thrown in seventh order, and it's still up in the air if they pass or not, whether or not this is going to get tabled or continue to go forward as planned. We've talked here, and there's been talk here about CMC, Geisinger, and spot zoning. Well, most of the people here have been focused on CMC, but in looking at the paperwork, I take a look at the University of Scranton and the size of the institutional sized zoning that was put out for CMC. Right now, the CMC cutout is about 33% of the size of the entire center city. That's just a fact. If you take a look at the cutout in the zoning map, it is approximately 1/3 of the size. Half actually of just the center city section, but taking center city and their section, it's about a 33% is zoned for Scranton, for the University of Scranton. And in looking at that, the original document that was put across by the Planning Commission had a small cutout from it, and that was provided to the University of Scranton. The University of Scranton sent its own map back with scratch outs for where it wanted the zoning change to fit it and to fit its institutional manner. And as a matter of fact, once they did that, the University of Scranton, the zoning map mysteriously changed to exactly match what the University of Scranton had proposed it wanted for that section. If that's not spot zoning, where a university or a business can come in and say, well, we understand it's this, but here's a drawing of what we want, and we go, okay, we'll give them what they want. If that's not spot zoning, I'm not sure what is. It's interesting for Mr. West leaving, because I remember people got raises, and part of the raises were to get the best of the best, to keep the people, to attract them to positions. Obviously, the money that was given out by the city is those raises. Well, that failed to keep people where they're supposed to be. It just gave more people in the paycheck, and it didn't attract that person to stay with this body. Since the mayor does not propose in Naog Park a pool and has pulled this entire process right and left, why does this body not propose a swimming pool? The 5 of you can create an ordinance, you can put it forward, you can vote on it, and if the mayor rejects it, you can veto the mayor and push it through. This body is not devoid of the ability to move legislation through for the people who they represent. If the mayor is blocking the process, you have the ability to say, it's time for that to end, it's time for it to move forward, and we are going to do so independently as part of our edict and our body. Now for this vote tonight. We've had amendments come up beforehand, and they've been struck down 3-2 constantly. I can only see this as a method to put this past the election. There's been a constant push to not make amendments for months at this point. The only logical reason why it would be considered at the last minute is to push this beyond the electoral season, because certain people will not retain office. And those people who hide behind this delay should not retain office. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quinn. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard?
Good evening, Joanne Williams. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but listening to everybody about the spot zoning, about corruption, really, why do you run for public office? You as a city council, Scranton School District, do you ever really think about that? Like, why am I running? What am I going to do in that seat? Because holding this up and taking the sides of corporations is not always in the best interest. We are neighborhoods. We are the people, our ancestors came here and wanted a future for all of us. And when someone comes in and tries to destroy a neighborhood or won't compromise, or won't even have answers to your questions, they don't have no plans, you need to think. Even with the Scranton School District, the board, that's another one. This is not good. This is not good. I'm reaching out to people to run for those seats, who care about the people and the children, the neighborhoods that will, like Lee Morgan said, have a backbone. The corruption must end. And you must think about the people who have lived here all their lives, what is best for them. You really need to think when you're running for office. Why am I running for office? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard?
Came down from the upstairs. I forgot my hat on. All righty. I intended to keep that, just the hospital discussion, but I've been reading the paper. I hope you people read the paper too. A few years ago, we were gifted with the brilliance of Henry Amoroso. And I would like to point out at this time, I heard complain about a water bill or something in a PUC. Well, that didn't work out because the Consumer Protection Commission protected everybody throughout the state, that we were already paying part of their bills. And I will also point out that not one issue, correct me if I'm wrong someday, but not one issue that he ever brought up, sell the sewer authority, sell the parking garages, sell this, sell that, you know, sell it all. And not one thing has worked out for the city of Scranton. We're settling a lawsuit on his recommended trash increase. And if the city had done proper accounting, I think we could have found that it was well worth $300 a year, because when I lived up the country, I left in 2001. In Susquehanna County, it was $2.25 a bag for a flimsy little bag. And you better watch it all day in case your neighbor decides he wants to steal it and dump your garbage out on the lawn and use the bag for his. Okay, now, the hospital. When will the facilities expand for medical facilities? I hear a lot about parking garages and stuff, and I'm kind of disappointed about it, because I would hope that, you know, I have no right to say this in a sense that it's etched in stone, but I'd rather see a 100-foot high medical facility expansion than a 100-foot high garage, or any garage, as far as that's concerned. We're going to need one, but we already have one there for the patients. And the amount of years it's going to take to tear that down and then build these other garages and back and forth, you're not talking any very much medical care for somebody that's 70 years old, per se. Probably will never happen. And the issue of taxes came up last week, and I deliberately stayed home so I could watch this all night and get as many facts as I could. When are we going after the state of Pennsylvania? It's their constitution that requires us to accept tax exempts and so-called nonprofits, whatever you want to call them. That's fine by me. But they are exempt. They bankrupted our school system. They bankrupted us with lack of cash flow into the city, and it just keeps going on and on and on. It keeps going on and on and on forever. Every year it's more. We went down to 33%, and I'm hearing more like 37. And with all of this, you know, you're probably approaching 40%. So that means that 60% of the buildings in Scranton are paying the taxes for the other 40%. And yes, they do great things, and I would have died if I didn't hit a hospital 19 years ago. But there and again, I seem to have been swept off the side anyway. So if they want to talk turkey, how about immediately expanding the hospital services and not the parking value?
Thank you, Mr. Dobson.
Have a good night.
Is there anyone else like to be heard?
Jess Nolan, 1700 block of Vine Street. I'm here again to talk about the zoning plan. I'd like to suggest that we look at the numbers a little differently tonight. I'd like to suggest that instead of focusing on the height of buildings, we look at the overall square footage that GCMC will gain in this expansion. So these are my very rough calculations. Assuming institutional zoning with 5-story structures erected on both blocks, that assumes one level underground, GCMC would gain approximately 225,000 square feet on the 400 block and 50,000 square feet on the 200 block, for a total gain of 275,000 square feet. I think this is actually probably an underestimate. For comparison, their major expansion in 2015 added 143,000 square feet. Now let me tell you what they were able to do with that 143,000 square feet, according to the press release on their website. They added new multi-specialty clinics, a state-of-the-art 18-room intensive care unit, and a new main lobby. With just 10,000 square feet of space, they were able to create a clinic that includes 22 state-of-the-art examination rooms and a large registration and waiting area. One can only imagine what they could do with almost double that amount of space. Certainly, this would give them plenty of room to expand their emergency department, create private rooms, and house updated imaging equipment, as they have said they need to do. By my, again, admittedly very rough calculations, I'm just using Google Maps to measure the size of the blocks and try to account for setbacks. The hospital is almost doubling their footprint in our neighborhood and increasing their square footage by 50%. I would say that is more than fair, given that GCMC chose to pursue this expansion without a guarantee. They could have involved, as others have said, could have involved neighbors in a conversation about expansion early in the process. They could have waited until the zoning changes were approved. They chose not to. Now they're saying that if the west side of the 200 block of Colfax isn't zone civic, they won't expand at all. They will walk away from an opportunity to expand their hospital space by 50%. The one thing that the hospital and the neighborhood would seem to agree on is that the city gets to decide on zoning, and the hospital will have to adjust as needed. For months, they dragged their feet, saying they couldn't provide any renderings until the zoning process was complete. You heard something very similar in their presentation last week. This would seem to me to be a tacit acknowledgement by GCMC that their expansion plans are contingent upon zoning changes that were not guaranteed when they started purchasing properties in summer of 2021, well before the draft of the zoning plan had even been shared widely with the public. The job of City Council is to approve a zoning plan that serves the interests of the city and its residents, not to bow to the demands and threats of powerful actors. The 45-foot height restriction provided under the institutional zone would allow GCMC to expand on the land they've acquired without completely changing the residential character of those blocks. GCMC wants the civic zone. The neighborhood really wants it to stay residential. Amending the current draft of the SAPA zoning plan so that the west side of the 200 block of Colfax is institutional, limited to 45 feet, would be a way to meet in the middle.
Thank you.
Good evening, Barbara O'Malley, Wheeler Avenue, Scranton. Also talking about last week's caucus. At last week's caucus, Geisinger CMC presented its case for hospital expansion, focusing on the crisis in the emergency department. To be clear, absolutely no one is disputing the urgent need to address this situation. What we are disputing is whether a 100-foot garage in the middle of a residential neighborhood is necessary to expand services, or if a 45-foot one will achieve the same results. There is a heightened urgency to push through this new zoning regulation, but it does not appear that immediate relief for the emergency department is in sight. Councilman Smurl asked Geisinger Rep. Ron Beer how long the project might take. He wanted to know if it was going to take 5, 7, 8 years, and, I'm paraphrasing him, he wanted to know if they were looking at doubling ER sites now to prepare for some time in the future. Mr. Beer's answer was full of jargon and catchphrases, references to parallel process, leveraging regional assets, capabilities, online, build out, pop-up valves, offload, etc. Frankly, I was dismayed and angered by this response. I was expecting something concrete, such as, we are looking at adding a trailer, or remodeling the former wound care clinic, or the lobby. Anything but the gobbledygook. This was one of the red flags that Joan spoke of last week. Mr. King, yes. As an administrator, as a school administrator, if you had students in hallways due to a lack of classroom space, and you gave an answer like that, what do you think the reaction would be of the public? Okay, gobbledygook. I also noticed when you, Mr. King, asked questions to Geisinger CMC reps, you used the words assure and assurances. I don't think the answers provided by CMC provided any assurances to this community. When Councilwoman Rothchild asked about a community benefits agreement which would assure neighbors of these basic agreed-upon elements between them and Geisinger, CMC, she was told that would be problematic, and frankly, she was put off. Another red flag. Mr. Beer described the parking garages as just enabling projects. How do you think that sounded to the residents whose quality of life will surely be impacted to them, like they are just collateral damage? Amending the zoning in the 200 block of Colfax from 100 feet to 45 feet will provide some relief to residents. After all, it's still a garage. And it might be an inconvenience to the hospital employees who will continue parking in Naog. Not the end of the world, but maybe it won't be, because Mr. King's suggestion to look at the 75 feet add-on to the garage in the 400 block, or if Geisinger CMC finds out if they can go underground, or if they find other options. In other words, necessity is the mother of invention. The point is, Geisinger CMC, as noted, is a billion-dollar corporation which has the capacity and the resources to find other solutions. You, city council members, represent Scranton residents whose pockets are getting shallower by the day. At the end of the day, a 45-foot cap on a garage will not make a difference to the actual medical space expansion at CMC, but it will be a night and day difference for the residents of the neighborhood, your constituents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Malley. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard?
President, Trip Park Civic Association, Executive Board Member of the Bull's Head Weston Field Neighborhood Association. Council, I come here tonight standing with my friends in the Hill once again. Neighborhoods built this city, as I said before. Neighborhoods will keep this city going. Years ago, when there was problems with the noise ordinance, neighborhoods got together, Bull's Head and Weston Field, and the Southside Neighborhood Association with Judy Gatelli. Those two groups working together rewrote the noise ordinance that we have today. I learned a few words going through school. One, few, and many. There's many people back here waiting for a few of you up there to listen to them and not give them lip service, and don't worry about the one on the hill. So what I ask you tonight is to put it back on the table, take the amendment that we had a few weeks back to lower the height, bring it up for a vote. Let's see where everyone stands. Because, as I said, one, few, and many. A few of you need to push this off, so the many back here suffer for the one on the hill. I ask you again, do the right thing for the people, not for the one corporation. Geisinger's not going anywhere. These people in the Hill, the many of them up there, are going to suffer at the expense of one because of a few that may vote 3-2. So once again, please do the right thing. And another topic you have on the agenda that I spoke about last week was the Environmental Advisory Council. I'm hoping that you have some amendments to that, in particular to what I said last week about having a say in the number of members that are on there. 3 with 2 alternates. I believe that City Council should take it to 5, which I thought I heard was where we were going, but City Council should have at least 2 of those 3. Let the mayor have 3 with the advice and consent of council, but let council have 2 on that board, just like they can vote to have people on the zoning board, because advice and consent, it doesn't mean anything. So I ask you for 2 things. Make that amendment to that ordinance so that you have a say, so that you're not strapped in the future. And listen to the people, don't give them lip service, pull it off the table, add the amendment to lower the garage, and let's see where the chips may fall, because They deserve more than lip service. They deserve action, because at the end of the day, many speaks louder than a few. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Thank you, Mr. Matievich. Is there anyone else like to be heard?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. Smurl, do you have any motions or comments?
I have one
Oh.
comment, and it's on employees in the city of Scranton. A few concerns. DPW,
He tried to
pardon me?
speak before we moved on.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Mr. Argento.
May I approach? Thanks. I'll bring another one up for you. I filed a right to know regarding 501 Linden Street. We were going to open a business there, and we had some issues, and I was told by the LIP department to file a right to know on some of the issues that I had, so I had filed it. And something that stuck out to me here was a temporary solution to an unsafe sidewalk, which the correspondence will show you. And it was with Jack Sweeney. And it went on, and there was an application and a permit that was filed and approved. A few weeks later, the LIPS department looked at the application and says that it was missing insurance. The contractor wasn't licensed in the city. There wasn't a price of how much was going to be done or a scope of what the job was going to be. I was curious that how does a application be approved prior to being checked out? So then further on into it, the owner of the building wrote a letter to Mr. Sweeney saying, "Dear Jack, due to the economic conditions, I am unable to find a bid that was affordable to fix my sidewalks on Linden Street this year. Accept my apologies. Maybe we'll try next year to receive an acceptable bid." Subway restaurant was closed and condemned for the same issue. The sidewalk is the only sidewalk in the city that I believe is still blacktop with the vault underneath it. I have personal experience because I was going to rent this building and I had issues with the utilities that were running underneath the rotted beams that hold up the sidewalks. And I was just curious to know, how does the building department give out permits prior to doing an approval? It's a little bit backwards the way it goes. And how does a building inspector who's no longer with us allow someone that knows that there's a problem to call and make his own custom agreements with the city? And if there's two sets of rules for the connected and the not connected, and I tried to contact LIP, the LIPS department, Cipriano, and the mayor's office numerous times on this particular property because my wife was going to open up a business in there. And it was just concerning to me that there's no dialogue, no communication with the administration, and that's not cool. Have a nice night. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Argento.
You're welcome.
Fifth order.
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. Smurl, do you have any motions or comments?
Yes, comments. I will continue where I left off. DPW has been down 2 mechanics for over 2 years. They are short 2 operators for a very long time, and the operators slow down all of the projects they have, because if we only have 5 operators, we need 7. We seem to be pulling from one job to the next because we can't get enough people to operate this equipment. We have a lot of equipment that sits down at DPW daily because we don't have enough people to operate all this. Also, we're short a parks director. Mr. Craig Beavers, the assistant city planner, is leaving the city. Also, Larry West will be gone shortly. This seems to be kind of concerning, that many people. I'm not sure how many are actually leaving the city, but I don't know if the problem is money, or if it's residency restrictions, or is this normal for all cities now to lose this many people all the time? I think we should look into our hiring system and see what we need to change to do better to find some more employees to fill these spots. That's all I have for now, Mr. King.
Thank you, Mr. Smurl. Mr. Schuster?
Some of my comments tonight I'll leave for on the question in 6th and 7th order, but I'd just like to say thank you to the Scranton Fire Department that put out the fire on Linden Street last night. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Rothchild.
Yes, I have a few things. Just pulling up an email here. Okay, first I wanted to bring up an issue I think we had already tried to contact the SPD about and haven't received a response, and that was with regards to permit parking that's in existence on the 900 block of East Gibson Street. I received a complaint from a resident who had received a parking ticket there, and they were someone who was just trying to visit the mikveh, which is a Jewish place of worship. It's over near the temple down there, and I was asked why it was still permit parking because there's only one house that's on that block of the street currently, and so it doesn't seem that there's a need for permit parking on that block. And when I've driven past it, because that's my street too, there's often like half of the block empty without cars. So I inquired about that, and since we haven't received a response, I wanted to bring attention to it tonight and to reach out again. So we need to determine if that still needs to be permitted or not, or if other people could park there, like if they want to go to their religious place of worship, which I fully believe they should be able to do.
I'll follow up with the highway officer and also on the status of the ticket.
I'd also like to know, there were a number of PennDOT requests that I made several weeks ago, and I'd like to know if we've received any responses on those PennDOT requests.
They were sent out. I'll follow up with PennDOT.
Okay, please do. Thank you. And lastly, we had received an email about one of the playgrounds at NAOG, and they had included pictures, and it's just a disgrace, the status of the playgrounds that are there. I know we have other concerns for the park, like trying to get a pool, and there's going to be another playground that's going to be built, the Butterfly Playground, which will be handicap accessible or accessible to children with disabilities, which I am very excited for, and it's definitely needed. But we're not taking care of the playgrounds that we have there now. And I do appreciate everything that the Recreation Authority does for the park, but the city also needs to take our part in maintaining that equipment, because the pictures, there's cracks in slides. There's two playgrounds. I don't usually take my daughter to this one. I take her to the other one in NAOG. And even that one is usually a bit on the dirty side, but this one is clearly falling apart and a hazard to the children who should be able to utilize it and play there. So I think we need to do everything that we can to correct this quickly before a child gets hurt, and then that's on us for not doing anything about it. So Mr. Voldenberg, please send correspondence to the administration that we need to get the playground fixed there. There's a slide with a crack in it. There seems to be, maybe a homeless person that took up shelter in part of the playground too. There's a number of articles of clothing and things like that. There's graffiti above one of the slides. So certainly not, a place I'd want to take my own child to, and I understand why the residents wouldn't want to either.
I'll take care of it, Doctor.
Thank you. And that's all I have for fifth order tonight. Thank you.
Mr. McAndrew?
All right, I have a couple things. So first, I'm going to report out on the questions we asked for Mrs. Jeffries. So the questions I did ask a couple weeks ago about the lead inspection assessment services, okay? How are the houses selected for testing? Is this testing voluntary? And will remediation services be provided? So there are the three questions I posed, and I did get the answers. So for number one, the city of Scranton is focused on single-family occupied dwelling units built before 1978. That was in the legislation, in which a child under the age of 6 years, and we understand all that. So the city is partnering how they're going to be chosen for assessment. The city is partnering with various nonprofit organizations to identify properties at risk. So that answers that question. And yes, the program is voluntary. And third, as with most grants, an assessment study is key to open up funding opportunities. The city has funding budgeted in ARPA to start remediation services. By doing the assessment, the city will now be eligible to apply for funding from HUD for additional remediation services. Okay, number two, so since we're talking about NAOG again, I also received the email with the horrendous condition of the equipment in the parks. So we don't need a consultant to tell us that. We don't need a master plan to tell us that we've been waiting for. This should have been taken care of last year. It's May. We're going to blink and it's May. So this is unacceptable. So again, please follow up with this. This is ridiculous, all right? And then in addition to that, I also received an email from a resident also about NAOG Park. What are the plans for the other side of the Kanjorski Bridge? I don't think that's been clearly conveyed to us. So please add that. Maybe a dog park, whatever. That was an idea from a resident. Like I said, most ideas from residents are good ones. And then also the flagpole needs to be addressed. The pole needs to be painted, and the area around it could be spruced up. And he had another great suggestion. Maybe contact the Boy Scouts. It'd be a great Eagle project. The flag should also be replaced. So I do remember last year, or no, it was earlier this year, that some of the vegetation was blocking the view of the flag from some residents. I think that was taken care of. So if you please would just follow up with these. I'll forward the email I have, so it'll be easier for you to do so.
Thank you.
And then what else do I have? Let me see. Oh, can we please make Mr. Spindler whole with them ash can containers in some way? Give him whatever he wants. All right? No, and I understand. I feel for him because that's absurd. I'm old enough to remember ash cans and how important they were. So also, about 2 weeks ago, I was in front of the Greenwich Neighborhood Association, and a concerned resident during the meeting asked me, Mark, did you hear anything about, there's equipment behind the Forest Hill Cemetery located, in Scranton-Dunmore line. A lot of equipment, pipes. She wanted to know if this was the start of the Meadowbrook flood project. Mr. Voldenberg inquired. I can report out that it's not. This is just a Dunmore project. So I hope that satisfies her question. And that is all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. I have some follow-ups from last week, some questions. As far as the DPW contract, I think that was addressed, Ms. Hodawanitz, earlier on Monday, April 24th. Andrew Cotillo is going to contact the City Labor Counselor for the fully executed collective bargaining agreement, try to get that posted on our website. The new auditor, Clifton Larson Allen, LLP, per Matthew Demeny, City Finance Director, BA Office, advised council will have the contract by the end of April. Virgil Argenta. Enforcement, Scranton Police Department, Scranton Fire Department were notified of the increase in homeless issues and encampments in the areas of the Lackawanna River Heritage Trail, North 6th Avenue and the McDade Expressway, Silex Street, in addition to other known areas, and will increase visits and enforcement in those areas. Derek Rains, DPW is scheduled to visit the 900 block of Monroe Avenue for preliminary work on Monday, April 24th. DPW is coordinating all road work with Pennsylvania American Water Company to ensure all work is done prior to the fall paving schedule. Marie Schumacher, per our city deputy solicitor, the city is putting the final touches on an RFQ for legal services and appraisal services and expects to publish it shortly. Approximately 44 easements remain outstanding. Brian Reap, Mr. Reap asked if the city follows the City of Scranton master plan. Don King, city planner, has noted that the master plan became the comprehensive plan under the SAPA plan under Resolution 170, November 2014, and continues in the SAPA plan to the present day. Faye Faranis, DPW overtime, first quarter 2023. Received a response with a recap for DPW director regarding DPW overtime totaling $191,000 and will forward the information to her. Rubicon, DPW provided with all available caucus dates in May and will advise back to council. And then the Myler Avenue situation, Scranton Police Department will advise. I believe it was mentioned the state police were involved with that as well. Request submitted to Mr. King via email. 1500 Hertz Court, ATVs speeding up and down the court where children are playing. A request for slow children at play signage in the court was approved by the Scranton Police Department and sent to DPW. The SPD Highway Unit Supervisor asked that neighbors notify Scranton Police Department dispatch when ATVs are in the area. 1407 Fig Street, pickup truck full of tree branches on a property for approximately 3 years. Code enforcement will visit the site property owner if warranted. Scranton Police Department Highway officer advised vehicle is on private property, cannot enforce, refers to code enforcement. As far as any amendments that will be considered tonight, I don't find it strange at all that amendments are being proposed, especially after we specifically had Geisinger come in here last week. We had a public hearing. We heard from Geisinger, first time as city council in public. We heard from many of you. And based on the input that we, what we heard from Geisinger, and based on what we heard from the citizens, some amendments have been proposed. Now, those amendments will come up in seventh order, as they properly should, and it will not, if approved, any of them, they will not be voted on this evening. It will be tabled to allow for 10 days of advertisement and to allow for the public to comment on any amendments that are made. To me, that's following the proper procedure and allowing the public to be able to comment on any amendments that are proposed and approved this evening. Fifth order.
5B for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Chaluski Enterprises to perform various projects at Novembrino Park, Connors Park, and North Scranton Mini Park.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, filed to Council Number 53, 2023, an ordinance establishing an environmental advisory council for the city of Scranton as amended.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A as amended. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A is amended, pass reading by title.
Second?
On the question.
On the question, I guess expressed my some of my dissatisfaction with this since the start. I would have liked to have more of a conversation. I am glad to see that some of the amendments are included here that would bring me closer to approving this with a yes vote. Prior to final passage in seventh order, it was brought up tonight about, at this point in time, we have 5 members that would be approved with the consent of council. Would council entertain making strictly council appointments before final passage? I don't know if anybody here would entertain that notion.
I'd like to at least have 2 out of the 5 appointments, or reverse, 3 and let the mayor have 2. I'd entertain that.
So, I mean, if that was something that could be entertained before final passage in seventh order, I may be in agreement with this as it goes. As Mr. Smurl said, we're down some DPW members. We've lost the city planner. We've lost our parks director. We've lost our business administrator. I see that the administration is failing at keeping department heads with some of the core responsibilities of the city. This board was considered by one of the public speakers last night as a feel-good board. That's how I'm seeing it at this point in time. When the mayor came to present, I wasn't really satisfied with any of the questions in the presentation that was given. I mean, that's why I've stayed where I'm at with my opinion of this. If council were to be more involved, as I saw some of those amendments, made council more involved, if we were to entertain a possibility of strictly council appointments to this, I may be in favor.
I would suggest that if we could move it to seventh order tonight, that would give me the opportunity to speak to the mayor between now and next week and make these suggestions. And then, whether she agrees or not, I would like to at least give her the opportunity to, chime in on our request, and then we can make that motion next week.
Yeah, that's fine to get the opinion. I think when it passes in the end, council does have the final say, but I wouldn't mind getting that input and seeing where it goes. But in order for me to approve of this, I think council would need to have strictly council appointments to the board, at least some of them. And from my research on these boards, the agendas of this type of board from around the state have only had things like unity days, cleanups, webinars, community gardens, things like that, things that I'm already seeing occur in our city, and that's kind of where I've been at with this from the start, as I see these things already occurring and don't see the need at this point in time.
All those in favor?
Can I just hop back on the question?
Sure.
Just to clarify, I don't want council to have the opportunity to appoint the alternates. We came to an agreement that it'll be a 5-person board. I think either council gets to appoint 3 or 2 of them. So that's, please be clear about that before next week. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The ayes have it. And so, 1 opposed. The ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Rules for Adoption, Resolution Number 222, 2023, amending Resolution Number 194, 2023, entitled Approving the Intermunicipal Transfer of an Eating Place Liquor License E2760, currently owned by Sulker, Inc., and located at 622 South Blakely Street, Dunmore, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania 18512, to Greenridge News, LLC, located at 329 Greenridge Street, Scranton, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania 18509, as required by the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board, to change the address of Sulker, Inc. to read 620 South Blakely Street, Dunmore, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania 18512.
As chairperson for the Committee on Rules, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second?
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for Adoption, Resolution Number 223, 2023, ratifying and approving the city's acceptance and administration of grant funds from the Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for up to $500,000 to be used for Scranton LTI LP for the project to be named the Leonard Theater Scranton.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Public Works for adoption, Resolution Number 224, 2023, authorizing any and all appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a traffic signal maintenance agreement with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation for traffic signal maintenance agreement.
What's the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Public Works?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Works, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D, previously tabled, for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, filed at Council Number 54, 2023, establishing regulations and restrictions for the location and use of lots, land, buildings, and other structures, the height, number of stories, and size and bulk of buildings and structures, the density of population, off-street parking, and similar accessory regulations in the City of Scranton, Lackawanna County, Pennsylvania, and for said purposes dividing the City of Scranton into districts and establishing the boundaries thereof, prescribing certain uniform regulations for each such district, and providing for the administrative enforcement and amendment of its provisions in accordance with the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code 53 PS Section 10101 et sec as amended.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend a final vote on item 7D.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, I'd like to make a motion. Scranton City Council wishes to amend the proposed zoning ordinance to extend the distance of setbacks of principal solar energy systems, PSESs, from 100 feet to 300 feet from adjacent residential districts or occupied structures. I make a motion that said proposed ordinance attached hereto as Exhibit A shall be amended as follows. Section 5.17, titled Ground-Mounted Principal Energy Systems, under subsection B2B, titled Setbacks, shall be amended as follows. All PSESs shall be set back 300 feet from adjacent residential districts or occupied structures. All other, that's all. I see that.
Are you done reading?
I'm done.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. Motion passes.
Scranton City Council wishes to amend the proposed zoning ordinance to remove the following. One dwelling garden apartments as a special exception permitted use, and 2 dwelling 2-family as permitted use for the R6 suburban single-family residential designations. I make a motion that said proposed ordinance attached hereto as Exhibit A shall be amended as follows. Article 3, Section 3.4, titled District Quick Views, shall be amended as follows. Dwelling garden apartments shall be removed as a special exemption permitted use and shall not be allowed under the R6 suburban single-family residential designation, and dwelling 2-family shall be removed as permitted use and shall not be allowed under the R6 suburban single-family residential designation.
Second.
On the question. Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. Motion passes.
Scranton City Council wishes to amend the proposed zoning ordinance and map so that the odd side of the 200 block of Colfax Avenue be zoned Town City Institutional, and that the even side of the 200 block of Colfax Avenue be zoned Town City Single Family Residence. Article 3, Section 3.2, titled Zoning Map, is hereby amended as follows. The odd side of the 200 block of Colfax Avenue shall be changed from civic zoning designation to Town City Institutional zoning designation, and the even side of the 200 block of Colfax Avenue shall be changed from Town City Institutional zoning designation to a Town City Single Family Residence zoning designation.
Second.
On the question.
Well, on the question, to clarify, this is to limit the 45 feet, just so everybody's clear on that.
Correct. This is to limit the height of the parking garages proposed for the 200 and 400 block of Colfax.
Roll call, please.
I'm sorry,
On the question.
Yes, so this is to change the 200 block from civic to Town City Institutional. So I have a number of things to comment on here tonight. I've been carefully listening and weighing this decision over a year. And I just want to caveat this with what I'm about to say, that the results of the zoning ordinance are of no personal interest or gain to me. No one's making this decision for me. No one is holding me hostage. I've not had my mind made up from the get-go with this decision. And I'm certainly not trying to push anything off past the election. In fact, back in the fall time, I was really pushing to get this moving and to get the finalized or the draft ordinance back to council so that we could complete it by the end of last year. I know the turmoil that the residents have been experiencing during that time, and so I wanted to see it resolved quickly because everyone has been anticipating this decision. And I've made my very best effort over that time to hear both sides of the issues. And I've also spent, over that past year, a lot of time, a lot of energy trying to ensure a fair resolution for the neighbors. I persistently worked on Geisinger to have them produce sample renderings of their planned expansion. And I've also advocated for the neighbors and their concerns that they've brought forward to me. I truly appreciate the involvement and the engagement of everyone throughout this process. And many of them have lived in the Hill for a long time, some for their entire lives. And I know that they've felt distraught over the changes to their neighborhood, specifically to Colfax Avenue, over the course of of recent events. And they deserve transparency, which I've always given to them and will continue to give on council. I've talked about how I see this from Geisinger's side as well as a healthcare provider, and I am supportive of Geisinger's need to expand. I'm really not happy with the way that they've gone about doing that and circumvented the neighbors, and I think there's been a lack of transparency and openness about the plans. And last week, I was really looking for some more answers and more specifics as to their plans. And I don't feel like I'd received adequate responses to those questions. And we did receive an email following that with follow-up from representatives from Geisinger, and that did include some more details on it, which I'd ask that be made public and placed in third order for next week. And so I'm not going to read all of it right now, but they had included some more details on the ED expansion, the emergency department, and how many beds would be included in there. Also, the amount of inpatient beds and what they would be looking to do for programming. Also, their commitment to a community advisory council, along with a draft bylaw plan for that council, if the neighborhood association is in agreement with that. They do have here, just want to read a couple of these lines, that they're open and willing to work closely with all stakeholders throughout the process in establishing a community agreement that helps guide the project along each stage. We're committed to building environmentally responsible buildings that blend into the community to the greatest extent possible. So I was hoping that this community agreement would be created and agreed upon in advance of this ordinance, but I don't see that happening, but it's at least nice to see that they've committed to that in what they sent to us. They also have some more calculations on their parking, and I guess there was a parking study completed in 2018, but all this information would have been great for them to have provided last week. They also have for the land development approval process, what would take place after the zoning ordinance is approved and finalized, with the plans going to the city of Scranton, reviewed by the City Planning Commission, City Engineer, and County Planning Commission. Plans will be available for public review. During the preliminary site phase, project studies will be conducted, presented to the city, and made public. There will be several public hearings with the Planning Commission and City Council where the public has the opportunity to voice any concerns with the proposed plans prior to approval of the plans. And then the city zoning officer will review the plans for conformance with the zoning ordinance. Once the preliminary site plans are approved, the final site plans adopt the feedback and requirements and go through a public review and approval process. And then they also have a breakdown. We had asked about the community benefits, some more details on that, because they had a total figure, but not some more information there. So all that will be made available. And I want to make sure that we hold them accountable, and I feel like that process will be a way to do that. As you know, I've really been struggling with this, and I've had conversations with my colleagues. There was a suggestion for an amendment to take place to restrict the height of the civic zone, and then there was also going to be one to change the setback for the civic zone so that it's set further back. So I've been weighing if that would be an adequate compromise. But after listening to everyone, I see that the compromise that the neighbors are looking for is with this to be changed to the institutional zone rather than the civic zone. And if I voted no on this, it would not feel right. This is my, the Hill is my neighborhood, so it's very, it's very personal to me. And this has nothing to do with an election either, because I'm not here to be a lifetime politician or to worry about the next election. I would like to continue to serve the people of Scranton because I believe in Scranton, and when we're asked why we're up here, ultimately, I want to serve the people, and I want to represent the people, and I want to do what's right by the people. And so I believe with this vote that for this amendment that I will be doing that.
Thank you. I will say that on the motion, this has not been easy for any one of us up here. This has been extremely difficult, challenging. Every one of us is trying to balance the need to improve the medical services for the city of Scranton. Everyone who has come up to speak, at least the vast majority, realize the need, especially now since Moses Taylor has closed their emergency room. Many of the hospitals in the area have closed in Carbondale and various other places. So this decision is very difficult because we're trying to address the needs of the neighbors on top of trying to address the needs of the medical needs for the citizens of our city and the emergency rooms, and it really is not a great situation up there at all. Just so everyone knows, none of us has taken any of this lightly. We've listened. We brought Geisinger in here. We've proposed, amendments have been proposed, and we've had to consider everything that's been presented before us and try to do the best, to try to make the best decision that we can for the citizens of the city of Scranton.
Just another one on the question, just before the vote for this amendment comes out, after the presentation that came from Geisinger the other day, there were some unknowns that we've seen. I know it was brought up in fourth order tonight, how far we can go underground, whether we can go for variance, things like that. And I do think the 45-foot height restriction is the compromise. And I do think that with the added space, I think that Geisinger presented with the 400 block, as well as how far or not we can go underground. I think with these unknown variables, if we were to hold to the 45, we still give them the opportunity to go in front of the zoning board for variance if they need it, if other information comes to light in their process. Thank you.
I'd like to say a couple more things too. So through this whole process, I've stood with the Hill, okay? I'm a neighborhood guy my whole life, and I'm a man of compromise. So the compromise you seek, the 45, was not a big ask, and it was a reasonable ask. So with that said, of course I'm going to be a yes for this vote.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
No.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
And Mr. King?
Yes. Motion passed.
Okay, so
Is there another motion?
we have to put it back on the table. If this passes,
What's that?
if the motion passes, the motion is made.
This is
Where?
the 10 feet to setbacks. It's for the
Oh, I apologize, okay.
That's right.
All right,
Do we want to make that motion?
this one right here.
Scranton City Council wishes to amend the proposed zoning ordinance as follows. Increase all setbacks under civic zoning from 10 feet to 15 feet. The proposed ordinance attached hereto as Exhibit A shall be amended as followed. Article 3, Section 3.4, entitled District Quick Views, is hereby amended as follows. All setbacks permitted under civic zoning designations shall be 15 feet.
Second.
On the question.
On the question, in reviewing the ordinance, I had taken a look and compared the civic zone to the institutional zone, and it appeared that the institutional zone had some setbacks that were 15 feet, whereas all the setbacks for the civic zone were 10 feet. So it didn't really make sense to me as to why those setbacks would be less with a taller height of a building in the civic zone as opposed to the institutional. So that's why you're seeing this motion here now.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
No.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. Motion passes.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to put 7B back off the table. I'm sorry.
I feel in the beginning of the meeting, we already brought it back from the table.
We have to table it, though. I'd like to make a motion to table.
Is this a motion to table?
Correct.
Second.
Another question?
This is to allow 10 days. You know, I think we explained that.
Right.
There's a reason why.
On the question, there's been some amendments that have been proposed and approved. This will allow at least a 10-day period for the public to comment and for us to advertise those amendments to the zoning ordinance that have been proposed this evening, and hopefully bring this back for a vote in a few weeks. So we have a motion, we have a second.
Yes, so this means it will not be on the agenda for the May 2nd meeting, but it will be on the agenda for final vote on the May 9th meeting, correct?
I believe so.
Probably be the earliest. Not probably, that would be the earliest.
Yeah, May 9th would be the earliest. And it's likely the May 16th meeting will be moved to May 17th due to the election on the 16th. Okay, so we have a motion to table. And we have a second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes. Motion passes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Would you allow me to speak for one moment?
Sure.
All right. Mr. Voldenberg, I'm just going to make one more request. For the last few weeks, we've been asking about the tents and the homeless camps. Is it possible to reach out to our public health coordinator to get an opinion on some of these camps, what her opinion would be on the camps in the city?
I'll be sure to involve her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that it, Mr. Schuster?
That's all.
If there are no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Meeting's adjourned.